Well, hello random YouTube people. Are you in need of replacing the upholstery on your chairs, like me, because of some toddlers? Well, stick around and let me show you what I did.
Subscribe.
My wife and I bought a table and chair set when we were first married, and it's lasted us for a long time. The people we bought it from wrapped it with a vinyl, and it's been really nice because it's really easy to clean. But as we started to have young kids that like to climb on the chairs, they started to tear the vinyl pretty good, and so it's time to replace these. Typically on these kind of chairs, to get the cushion off, all you need to do is flip it over and undo the 4 bolts that are holding it on in each corner. I just have my Ryobi impact driver, and I'm just going to loosen those screws. After the 4 screws were off, I kind of just had to push on this chair to get the cushion loose. As we take a closer look to the underside of the cushion, you can see the vinyl was just wrapped over and stapled. It's really pretty easy. The hardest part is the corners. So let's go ahead and take this old vinyl off, and we're just going to peel it off, and hopefully the staples come with it. Otherwise, we're going to have to pull out the staples one by one later because we don't want to staple on top of other staples. Now that the vinyl wrapping is off, you can see the original fabric covering is still on. I'm going to leave it on. I'm not going to bother taking it off. I'm going to do just exactly what the people before me did. Before I headed out to the store to buy new vinyl, I wanted to make sure I measure how big these chairs are. I need to make sure I get the right amount of vinyl. It looks like it's coming in at 18.5 by 17.5. Now I'm going to measure the vinyl that I took off of the chair so that I know how much vinyl I need to purchase, because remember, you're going to need to get enough to wrap around the edges. I'm even going to go back and measure how far it wraps around the edges, just so that I get enough fabric when I'm there at the store. Like I mentioned earlier, before I install any new fabric, I'm going to go through and take off all of the remaining staples that I couldn't get out when pulling off the previous vinyl. I'm just using a typical plier and a screwdriver. So we headed out to a local fabric store called Joann's, and we got a vinyl wrapping that we really liked. It's not the same as we had. We couldn't find one just like what we had, but we liked it. We thought it would go well with our chairs and our table. So we are going to lay it out on the floor, and I'm going to take a measurement, and I'm going to find the halfway point and make a marking. I'm going to do that and draw a big line across it so I know what's halfway in the middle. And I'm going to do that on the other axis, the vertical, if you will. And I'm going out and I'm grabbing a big piece of wood so I can draw a nice straight line, because this is quite long actually. I can't do that with any regular ruler that I have around. So I just grabbed a spare piece of baseboard and I'm going to draw a straight line. And then eventually I'm going to cut this just with some scissors. I used a Sharpie, so it's a nice black line, easy to follow. And there we are, 4 evenly sized squares of vinyl. Let's go ahead and start wrapping the first cushion. I have my first square of vinyl laid out on the floor, and for this project, I'm going to be using my Stanley Bostitch hand staple gun. This product and any other products in this video I will link in the video description. I went ahead and picked up a pack of Arrow staples with a variety of sizes. I didn't know which one I was going to want to use. I ended up using the 10mm size. As I flip it around, you can see that it kind of has an angle on it. I think these teeth, if you will, on these staples will hold into the fabric and into the cushion a lot better than the ones with the just straight edges. I went and I grabbed one of the cushions, and I wanted to illustrate that this particular cushion, you can see, has kind of a knockout in the back. This is for where it lines up to the backing of the chair, the backrest. So when you're putting the vinyl on, you're going to want to make sure you remember these parts of the chair and make sure you account for them when you are wrapping your vinyl around it. Okay, without further ado, let's go ahead and start wrapping this first cushion. I'm going to flip up the sides and make sure that the cushion is in the dead center of this fabric. Let's go ahead and start wrapping this by pulling up one side, and I'm going to staple it nice and tight and make sure that it's center when I do so. 1 in the center and 2 on the edges. And now I'm going to flip the cushion around and do the exact opposite side. And when I do the opposite side, I'm going to make sure I pull the vinyl nice and tight so that the cushion and the vinyl is nice and firm on the other side. As I flip this around, you can see the vinyl is nice and straight and flat. I'm going to go ahead and flip it back over and staple on the very outside edges to keep the fabric in a nice firm position. That's what she said. And the same thing for the other side. And now comes the really difficult part, the corners. So this particular vinyl that we got is a lot thicker than the vinyl that was on there before. Depending on the thickness of your fabric, this might not be such a big deal, but because this vinyl is so thick that when we try to fold over the corners, there's just so much fabric. If I were to try to staple through all these layers and then put it back on the chair, you would notice that the chair would sit up really high. So I have to find a way to cut out some of this fabric so that it's not so thick. Looking at the vinyl that I took off, I'm going to try to match what they kind of did. So I'm going to cut a straight line across the edge of the cushion here, and then when I get to the very edge, I'm going to cut an angle back into the other direction. Kind of make it look like a present wrapping, if you will. Now, I don't claim to be a professional when it comes to upholstery, so I'm going to show you what I did. I had to remove some extra fabric. Because at this stage, I don't know how much fabric to remove, I'm going to take it edge by edge as I go around the corner. So here you can see me pulling up the fabric, and I'm just trying to make a nice straight perfect looking edge piece, and I'm going to go along as I do and remove any fabric as I need to. Now that I have the first part of the edge looking good, I'm going to grab my staple gun and staple it and work my way around the edge doing the same thing. So you can see now I'm just folding the rest like a present, pulling in the edges so it wraps around the corner and it's looking good. And here I'm going to drop another staple in. So here's what it looks like on the underside. Now I'm just going to sit here and repeat the process for all 4 corners. Remember that 2 of the corners have that little knockout, so the edges might not look so pretty there, but it will be hidden by the backing of the chair. And as I go around, you can see that I'm cutting off the extra fabric that I don't need. If I fold all of the fabric down, the chair is not going to sit right, so I'm folding just what I need to get the chair to fit and go around the edges nice and clean. In this case, you can also see I've cut quite a dramatic angle. That's because I'm trying to pull the fabric nice and tight so that it looks good around the whole edges, especially on the top where it will be visible. Remember, this underside is not going to be seen, so if it's a little ugly, that's okay. These last 2 are a little tricky because these are the knockout corners I pointed out earlier. I'm just trying to make them fit nice and good. And remember that the backing of the chair is going to hide some of this just to make sure that it looks good around the edge that will be seen. Now with all 4 corners done, here's a look at the final and completed piece. Remember, this first corner is going to be hidden behind the backrest of the chair, but overall, I think I did a not too bad job for my first upholstery attempt. So let's keep going for the other 4. And of course, when you're done with the cushion, we're going to put the cushion back on the chair. We're going to first position it on the chair to make sure everything looks good. Then we're going to flip it back around and put back in those 4 screws that we took off earlier. And here's a look at the final piece. This fabric is really nice looking, I think. And I did not so bad of a job, I don't think, on my upholstery work. But now we just complete for the other 4 chairs. And here they all are, the completed set of 4. I think these look really good. There's one corner I'm not too happy with, but I don't think anyone's ever gonna notice. I'm really actually pretty proud of these, and I hope these stand up even better to our toddlers climbing up on these chairs than the last ones did. Thank you so much for watching. It really helps my channel out if you like, share, comment, and
Subscribe.
subscribe.